Good evening. This is the Pursuit of Anime. You are joined here by myself, Raven, and Teddy,
Hello.
and we're here to, as the usual, talk a bit of anime, a bit of philosophy, um, and in this case, we're talking about Gear Fifth uh, in One Piece and the meaning of joy. Um, now, this is a bit of a broad topic. We're definitely going to be sorting our thoughts as we talk about this subject, but basically, the The introduction of Gear Fifth in Wano, for me was very special. Um, Even just the image of seeing Luffy with like a huge smile is something that isn't foreign to One Piece. We've seen, at least I noticed in the old art of One Piece. If you look at characters like Vivi, Nami, even Zoro, these characters used to have really big smiles. Whenever you saw like the cover spread or cover arts, you would see the characters with hands up in the air and like they have like the biggest, larger than life smiles. It's one of the reasons why I love Vivi's character. She has a lot of scenes where she's displaying the smile, and there's this overall sense of joy throughout the world of One Piece, although it is an afflicted world. And it seems to be a reoccurring theme in the story of One Piece, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of kind of what joy means for some of these characters. Maybe get into a bit of what joy would mean to us, and how the story of One Piece is exploring this theme of joy, how it's being tied in, and maybe even get into some theories. But what do you think, Teddy, about kind of the meaning of joy in One Piece and how Gear Fifth, the introduction of that this new power or this new entity, just everything that involves Gear Fifth, kind of involves or introduces a new layer to this theme of joy or thought.
Um, you know, it I feel like it's definitely interesting because it's like Oda doesn't he ties both the concepts of joy and freedom together as if they like one cannot exist without the other, right?
Hmm.
And I find it interesting because it seems to me that just the overall theme of the story is like you cannot find joy in life if you don't have freedom. And I think Gear Fifth embodies that the best. Because think back to the the system of oppression that a lot of people live in the One Piece world, like with the celestial dragons and the heavenly tribute and all these different aspects of the world that show you that the people like the majority of the population is not free, right? They in one way or another are subservient to powers above them, and there's really not much you can do about it because if you try to do something, remember what happened in Sabaody, right?
Yeah.
You raise a hand against the celestial dragon, it's the might of the Marines come down on you. So it's they're living in a constant state of fear and terror. So a lot of
Yeah.
people they just don't have any joy in that. But then the people that you see who seem to have the most joy in their lives are also the ones that go to the beat of their own drum, which is funny because the way like one of the defining aspects of Gear Fifth is the drums of liberation, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting that people like go to the beat of their own drum that also find the most joy in their life because they're they get to decide for themselves their own fate for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And I think with Gear Five, it was. I'm not gonna lie to you. At first, I was a little bit conflicted because it felt a little bit too much, if that makes sense. I felt like it was a little bit over the top for me. and I wasn't. It didn't really drive well with me at first. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was kind of conflicted. I was like, I don't know, like this. I like that it's unique. It's very original. Can never deny that. But it took a while to grow on me, both in terms of its applications, how it works, but also what it's supposed to represent, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it is definitely is an abstract concept. Like, it's not a very like concrete power. Like, I don't know, like Bakugo, for example, in My Hero, he basically makes fire, right? Like, it's very simple to understand. Or Todoroki, like half of his body is fire, half of his body's ice. Like, it's very simple and easy to understand. It doesn't really require much horsepower for your brain to process what's going on there.
Like this
But
dude's
then
power is a concept.
yeah, it's just a
Think about
random
that.
it's just like a lot of things just thrown into Gear Fifth. So there's the drums of liberation where I mean if you're seeing that for the first time, you're like, well, where are these drums coming from? Like is this just like is this like a figurative drums or are there actual drums in reality like that these all the characters are hearing, or is it just Luffy that's hearing it, or is nobody hearing it, it's just us as the audience we're getting to hear? So there's a bunch of like very abstract I feel like Gear Fifth as a whole is a very abstract concept. Of course it's based on a god, on the sun god. um and even just like the power of imagination and what it entails, it's very abstract in nature, so it's a bit hard to put your finger on, to understand, and to I guess relate to, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the thing because he's rubbery, right? And so his body's supposed to embody that way that you can just move yourself freely because you're made of rubber. Or actually, technically, he's not made of rubber. He's rubbery, which is a very like important distinction that
He
didn't
has the
like.
properties of rubber,
Yeah, yeah, but
like
he's
bungee
not
gum.
actual rubber. Right. So that's the thing because they said Nika was a warrior who could move freely, almost as if he was made of rubber. Right. So I think the way we're supposed to understand Luffy's devil fruit is that it's not the rubber fruit. It's a fruit that gives him a body that's rubber like. And ever since we learned that, I was like, oh, so maybe there is an actual rubber fruit out there that could that you use to mimic what Nika does, but it's not really the same because you can't become a god because you're not, right?
Yeah,
Because
you
that's
can't do
that's
the
where
imagination or the drums of liberty. You can't do any of that.
yeah, which is it's so funny because even before we got to Gear Fifth, right?
Yeah,
We were already having conversations about how like the power of Luffy's imagination in using that ability, if you remember.
yeah,
Because at first it was like, dude, you're rubber? What? What are you supposed to do with that? And then we saw all the different applications that he has for his ability, and then gear second, gear third, gear fourth. We're like, yo, this dude, like the sky seems to be the limit for him. Like, he's able to do things that after he does them, you think to yourself, like, oh, okay, I see how that could have happened. To this day, I love Gear Fifth, right? And I love Gear Four Snake Man especially. But I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Just from like a mechanics standpoint, Gear Second is still my favorite
yeah,
because I feel like it was that power up that was in your face, but you didn't even think about it until he actually did it. You're like, of course, because his body is rubbery, he's the only man on earth who can do something like that.
yeah. Makes
And
sense.
it makes sense because he's basically it's like a doping mechanism. Like it's so cool. Like when Lucci broke it down, I was like, yo, this dude is different. Like he's really just he's a different animal, he's a different beast. Like everything that he does with that fruit. And that's another thing too, because once he awakened Gear Fifth, right? He had which is something I have to credit the anime for emphasizing. It was like he was already rubbery. He became even more rubbery. It's like he was almost liquid. How malleable he was, like how much he was just like free flowing almost. Like you see everything, his limbs, the way he ran, everything that he did. It's like wow, you really look like you are more free. Right? And then he
Yeah.
showed in the way he was actually fighting. It's like okay, yeah, this dude is yeah, he's completely goofing around now because he's unrestricted for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that the way he was during his fight against Kaido, the way he was fighting there, it kind of reminded me of um real life a little bit because it's like just because you're going through hard times doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be sour or salty about it. You can still find joy in life. You can still enjoy the process while figuring it out and going through the motions, right? Because he was basically fighting for his life and for the life of everybody in Wano during that fight. But he was doing so with so much freedom, with a smile on his face. It's like, listen, if we're out here, we might as well enjoy ourselves. I like
Yeah.
putting in this work, and I felt like I saw a little bit of myself in that because that's how I try to live my life too. Even through the hardest of times, the darkest of times, I try to look for the positive, the silver lining, the fun in all of it. A-
Really.
like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I've had some dark times. I've been through certain experiences that um I don't even like remembering myself because I didn't know how I was gonna get out of them. I didn't know I was gonna figure them out.
Yeah.
And it was like times of uncertainty, times of absolute despair. And it's like you don't know what to do because much of the solution is out of your control. And you can only hope that everything will work out in your favor
Yeah.
while you do what you can on your side. And it is some of the most anxiety inducing experience. And I don't wish that on anybody, right? And that's why sometimes when I see some people, they seem to be struggling with certain things. I'm like, you think it's bad? I could tell you, I could show you what like how much worse he can actually get. And that could put your own quote unquote struggle into perspective. And
Yeah.
you'll probably be able to see it in a better light, right? Because I feel like we live in a world, especially in first world countries, where everybody seems to over dramatize their struggle.
Oh, for
And
sure.
they don't realize that for as bad as they think they have it gets so much worse and they have no clue.
Yeah.
So that's why like with Gear Fifth a lot of the time, like he was in the depth of like one of the most intense battles he's ever been in. Right?
Yeah.
Like he's fight with Kaido that I don't think he gets much more intense than that for him. Like how many L's did he take to Kaido before finally winning?
How many L's?
Yeah.
Dude, a lot, man. I mean, I can't even count how many times he got mollywopped. It was a very back and forth fight. I mean,
See,
that was a yeah.
that's the funny thing, right? I think it was like because so for the longest time, Luffy was called the bounce back king because he's rubbery, so he bounces back, right? But with Kaido, when they first got there, he initially got one shotted, taken to jail, goes to jail, goes through a training arc, comes back out.
Yeah.
When he's on the rooftop, at first he looks like he's doing something. He gets put in the dirt again. And while he's there, he's trying to recuperate everybody else, like Kid, Killer, Law, and Zoro. They're trying to do their thing. His man is like, yes, give me a second. I need to recuperate. And Kaido goes to eat him, and Zoro has to get him out of Kaido's jaws. Like, hey, no, you ain't about to eat my captain like that. So,
Yeah.
he comes back. He's like, oh, I figured out what's going on. You're using Conqueror's Haki coding to make your attacks more potent. I figured out your gimmick. I can use that to defeat you. Gets whooped off the island. And then comes back again. Get puts in the dirt again. Gets back up. Dies before he awakens Gear 5. So that's like 4 or 5 times that he lost to Kaido before coming back, right? And I feel like that's like such a beautiful metaphor, even on life in general, where you can get put in the dirt so many times, but what did it say? It's not about how many times you fall, it's about how many times you get back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's what he did there until he became a god, essentially. It's like I will keep coming back because I have to, no matter what, you know?
Yeah.
And like between him and Ichigo, honestly, I don't know who has the greatest determination because I'm not gonna lie to you. Out of all the MCs out there, Luffy and Ichigo, they were the two that when I saw their determination, I was like, I don't know, even like Yusuke and all that stuff. It's like, I don't know if there's anybody out there that is as determined as they are because it's not like they're ready to give it their all in a fight. It's like they are, they have this indomitable will almost that drives them. So what I mean by that is remember with Ichigo and Ukiura
Yeah.
when Ukiura showed him the final stages of his transformations and he was completely outmatched and this guy was like, I know I don't stand a chance. And this is the part that got me because it wasn't he wasn't delusional. He wasn't pretentious or full of himself to think that he had the power in him to defeat Ukiura. He was like, I know you're way more powerful than me, but do you think I'm just gonna lay there, roll over, and die? I
Right.
have a job to do. And that job is to do my best to put you in the dirt. And until I do that, I'm not gonna stop. And it's that kind of grit, that kind of determination that had me like, yo, if everybody could go through life with an ounce of that kind of determination, can you imagine how much better some people's lives would be?
Yeah.
And it's the same with Luffy, where I feel like that's what some people call Gear 5 an ass pull. I call it a reward because the man just kept going. He would not stop until he died. And through death, came back, right? It's like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Like, I'm not done. I can't be done because I have a job to do. And if I have to come back from the gates of heaven to do it, I will. It's just that simple, you know?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like people can say it like the power up came out of nowhere, but people forget that like this is a story, and there's themes, there's things beyond just what you're seeing on surface level as to why it was placed there. And that's like the whole reason why we're even talking about this is the theme of joy that is being explored more through this power up. It's not just like, yeah, there's is an aspect as an artist, I'm sure, of Oda, just like, yeah, I want to make this design, it looks cool, but there is something more to it. There's more to
Absolutely.
all of these. There's more to all of these stories, right? Like, um, Jujutsu Kaisen, he didn't just write Gojo because he wanted somebody to just be a badass guy. Of course, there's more to him and to his story, right? And the same with all the other characters in the story, and with Bleach, right? Bleach has some of the coolest looking characters in all of anime. And yeah, there's a huge aspect in Bleach of kind of like Kubo just kind of drawing what he thinks looks cool, but at the same time, there's heavy themes in it, and there's like reasons why they're placed into the story. It's not just mindless, like, yeah, I just got to pull this out because it looks cool. That's not what Gear Fifth is. And
No,
I
no.
want
Mhm.
and I want to circle back to this kind of idea, like with that you touched on, that like freedom and joy seem to go hand in hand in One Piece. You see this throughout, even in the beginning of One Piece, right? Even in the live action, Buggy has the town kind of in chains and shackles, right? Um, Nami and Arlong Park, and Kokoyashi Village. They're literally enslaved, because the opposite of freedom is being captured or being enslaved, being chained
Oppressed.
up, yeah,
Mhm.
being locked up. And so from the beginning you're seeing these people being deprived of joy, being deprived of this freedom. And it just keeps pervading throughout One Piece. You're seeing it with Kuma's story now, with Bonnie. You saw it in Fishman Island. You're seeing it with the Celestial Dragons more and more. You're seeing the impacts of what a lack of freedom brings. Now, now to take that to like the real world, Teddy, do you think that that applies to the real world? That in order to be happy, in order to have joy in your life, do you need freedom?
You
Can
need, yes, I feel like you need to feel like you have freedom over your own self and your own actions.
hmm,
Like if you feel like your every move is always being watched, or that you can't truly be yourself in many ways, I think it's hard be to have joy in
yeah,
life, right?
I,
Because you're feeling like you're restricted. You can't really be yourself,
yeah.
you know?
That
Like
reminds me of like this job I had once of I think it was when I used to work at Chick-fil-A or something, or Sugar Factory, and somebody saw me once, and I was looking pretty unhappy, and they were like, "Yo, like, are you happy? What's going on?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'm happy. I mean, I'm about as happy as somebody that's spending their birthday in North Korea. You know what I'm saying? Like it's my
yes.
like yeah, it's my birthday. Sure, I'm happy about that, but I'm in freaking North Korea. How happy can I be actually? You know what I'm saying? So it's like the idea of, and you've seen this throughout history, where I'm sure you've seen these, like in the days of slavery in America, they would depict black people, black slaves, as like happy, jovial. They're just happy to serve the slave master, and the reality could be farther from the truth. So I do think that that freedom and joy kind of go hand in hand. I do kind of agree with the story, and and there's this kind of idea concept too, where like Kuma was kind of putting his faith, because of course Nika is the sun god, right?
Mhm.
So do you think do you think in the real world though, let's say for example theoretically you're enslaved, and you really want to have joy, you want to have freedom, is looking to a god, or is looking to some figure, or a liberator or something, is that really a healthy way of coping with a lack of freedom or a lack of joy, you think?
Um,
Or
I
is it
think
like a
I
cop
think
out?
it's as good a coping mechanism as any. Because mind you, you find yourself in a situation where there isn't much you can do about it, right?
Yeah,
You're kind of stuck there. And so at least if you have something to look forward to or to hope for, I feel like that can give you a much needed light that can guide you through the darkness of your current predicament. If you don't have that, then you're really truly in a desperate situation. And there's nothing really worth living for. And at that point, you're just slowly decaying away. Right. So I
yeah,
think having that inspirational figure to look to is definitely a it's a worthwhile and valid um, kind of coping mechanism, if you will. Except like in their case, they didn't think it was a coping mechanism. They truly believed in it, right? They thought eventually this entity will show up and free us from our shackles. It's
Yeah.
not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And that when can be decades, centuries, but it will happen. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but in the next. You have to think there is a void century in the history of One Piece, right?
Yeah.
But then what I feel what people forget sometimes is that after that void century, there have been more centuries leading to today because the void century happened 800 years ago. So ever since then, for 800 years, people have been hoping, praying, and waiting for the return of that figure, whether it be Joy Boy, Nika, maybe it's two in one, maybe it's the same person, but with different names. We don't have confirmation on that yet, but people are waiting for it, right? And mind you, maybe to us, right, in our world, the power of hope, hopes, and wishes may not be as strong. But in the world of One Piece, that power takes physical form.
Yeah.
Because remember, in Egghead right now, we're learning a little bit more about the lore of One Piece and where the Devil Fruits came from. And according to the greatest mind in that world, Vegapunk, he told us that he's a conjecture or theory, so to speak, on the origin of Devil Fruit is the people's wishes given form. So if you're looking at a fruit like, I don't know, the jacket fruit, one of the worst, if not the worst devil fruit that we've been introduced to in the story, right?
Nah.
People say
God.
it's possible that maybe like somebody at some point wished that they could envelop somebody that they loved, right? So hard that they created this fruit that turns them into a jacket so they can actually, you know, do what they've been wishing they'll be able to do. And it's like that with a lot of other devil fruits. We're just like, how warped can your mind be that that's your wish that you wish to be able to do that? That's crazy. And I think it might be the same with Luffy's devil fruit.
Yeah.
Like somebody wished so hard for the sun god Nika to come back or to be real that the fruit became a reality. And
Yeah.
Luffy ate it, right? So the power of hope is it's something serious in One Piece. So that's why like I said, even without considering that, it's a valid coping mechanism. But once you realize that it actually has a real power, it's like, oh yes, absolutely. Wish with all your might because it just might come true, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think that like in a story it becomes a little bit more simplistic. Like if you were to say in One Piece, how does one find joy? It can be very simple because it's kind of a world where like a fist and a devil fruit or a sword and a gun can take you a long way. They can solve your problems pretty quickly.
yep.
But in the real world, if somebody asks you, Teddy, how can I find joy? I have no joy in life. You might find that maybe this person has a lot of freedom in their lives, right? Maybe they got a nice spot where they're living at, or what have you, but they still feel that they don't have any joy. So it's a bit different. Yet One Piece is a story that a lot of us, it has such a huge following, so a lot of us flock to it, and I think we're inspired by it, and we see like these inspirational characters like Luffy. I know a lot of people I've spoken to, they said that One Piece has inspired them in big ways. So stories can definitely help. um do you think though that at the end of One Piece because it is very idealistic. You know, he's gonna, I guess, liberate the world and I guess free all the slaves, free all those who are shackled, beat the big bad world government. Is that how you see the story ending in that kind of idealistic way?
Well, you see, this is the thing about the human condition, which is that we can resolve some of the biggest or some of the bigger issues in the world or the bigger conflicts,
Yeah,
but as long as humans remain humans, you could never completely erase conflict. It's woven within our DNA. That's just part of the human experience. You cannot completely remove it. Just
yeah,
like people hope that we can always have peace. No, sometimes we can have problems. Okay, like we can't like you see. So I did there. It
yeah,
can't always be just 100% peaceful. You know, people
yeah.
have differing backgrounds, different upbringings, different opinions on what's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable, what's not. And because of that, you're going to find yourself in situations where people disagree vehemently enough to where they're ready to fight over their beliefs and their values and what they stand for, right? So it's I don't know. I feel like the big main um issue in the world of One Piece will probably be resolved by the end of the story, but it won't be like the end all be all. It's like there's still going to be forces in there that I mean, just look at the Marines. They're supposed to stand for justice, right?
Yeah,
Even within an organization that's supposed to have a united front and have a common vision and a common goal, even in that organization, you find people who have their own understanding of what justice is,
yeah,
right? Just look at the admirals. Every single one of them has a very distinct approach to justice and how
sometimes they
to
bend the rules.
exactly. Sometimes they bend the rules, but it's all in the name of justice because they actually wholeheartedly believe that that's what's best for the people as a whole. Like it doesn't come from a place of malice or anything. No, no. Like in their minds, the way they rationalize it is this is what is necessary for a better world.
Yeah,
You got Green Bull is like oppression sometimes is necessary because that's how you keep people in line. That's how you keep
right.
order and you make sure that nobody rises up, right? But then you're
I
gonna
know
have
a
the
lot of
people yeah.
you know a
Mhm.
lot of managers like that. I'm sure listeners can know a lot of managers that are like that.
Oh yeah, it's like apply pressure, micromanage as much as possible because that's how we keep order and we make sure that you stay on task and you do what you're supposed to be doing. Like, bruh.
Yeah, to keep you in fear. And that's just, do you think that like there's an answer to that in real life? Like when it comes to freedom and joy, like let's say you're a manager, Teddy. Do you think that just giving the workers like as much freedom as you possibly can, let's say like you have a team of workers that you know they all do very well, they all do their job very well, right? Now you as a manager, do you trust them and give them the freedom to just like, listen, you can manage the store, you can manage the restaurant, I trust you, I'm not gonna, be up your ass the entire time?
No,
or
I
do
can't do
you
that. You
or do
can't
you
do that.
apply the pressure?
You have to apply some pressure at least. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Is because ability doesn't necessarily mean that you can be responsible
Mm-hmm.
all the time. Because you got people, they're really good at what they do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they always know the right calls to make in every situation, right? Because at the end of the day, especially if you're going to give them freedom to do their work and you trust in them to do what they need to do, they also have their own sense of individuality that's going to shine through at some point, no matter what, no matter how seriously they take their jobs. And so, as a manager, your role is, yes, give them as much freedom and leeway as possible to do their job, but intervene when you see it fit or necessary to do so. Right? Because if you like, there are times when you got people who are very skilled in what they do, but they lack broader perspective, a broader vision, right? It's like, let's say, for example, you work with somebody who's great at bussing tables, or let's just say like a server, right? In general,
Yeah.
where they're really great with the people, like they're very well educated, they know how to hold conversation and this and that. That's great. The problem sometimes, though, is somebody like that might spend way too long on one table because they're so good at socializing that maybe that table is going to hang on to that server because they want to keep talking to them. And then the server is going to be like, oh, wow, man, I'm good at what I do. And they're being entertained right now. So I'm going to stay here. But it's not efficient from the time management perspective.
Yeah.
We got other tables to get to, we got other people to serve. So the manager's role at that point is to intervene and be like, listen, I understand you're good at what you do. Now, you need to do that with those other tables. It can't just be that one table,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So that's where the role of the manager comes in. So it's like, I'm gonna give you some freedom, but not 100% freedom. And
Oh,
when the occasion rises, it like presents itself, you'll see why it has to be that way.
yeah,
And most people understand when it's done the proper way. So yeah, you can never be 100% hands off. Like, go ahead, do
yeah.
whatever. You know.
So now to take that to One Piece, do you think the world of One Piece can function with true freedom, with just pure freedom, just pure liberation from the world government, pure world liberation from the shackles of the corrupt marines? Like, can One
I,
Piece really exist that way?
I think he can. I think he can. And that's why, like, when we are talking earlier, I realized something where I was like, so I feel like the deeper message of One Piece when it comes to the whole concept of freedom versus joy is that freedom may not be necessary for you to find joy in life,
Yeah.
but if you don't have freedom, you definitely won't find joy.
Hmm.
I feel like that's kind of where it is, where it's like, because like you said, there's certain situations where you have all the freedom in the world, but you don't have joy because there's something missing. Maybe you don't have a goal for yourself. Maybe you're just going through life, going through the motions, and you feel like you don't have a purpose. You don't have anything that makes you want to wake up in the morning, right? And
Yeah.
so at that point, your journey is to find that thing that's going to get you going. But what I feel like what the message of One Piece is that that is true. But if I don't even give you the luxury to be bored, you're you're definitely not gonna find any joy in life because you'll be too busy trying to survive under an oppressive regime, right? Where it's like, I need to find a way to pay the heavenly tribute at the end of the month. I need to make sure that if a celestial dragon comes in my town, I better pray that he doesn't want to take my wife, or that on a whim he doesn't decide to just raise the whole town, right? So is that kind of world that they live in. And I think the purpose of Luffy and Gear 5 and being that agent of freedom and joy is like, I'm going to liberate you from this. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're instantly going to find joy in life,
Yeah.
but at least you have the peace of mind that you're not being oppressed.
Yeah, that
I
makes
think that's
sense.
what the message is, right? It's like it's not a it's like a like almost a necessary condition that you don't be oppressed, because even and this is the thing, right? This is where it gets really nuanced, because even in a system of oppression you can still find a way to be happy, right? You can still, because all it is a matter of perspective and what you decide to focus on. If you decide to focus on your close relationships with the people around you and your craft and things that you do, you won't even notice that you're living under unfair rule, right? Because
Yeah,
your mind is focused on the things that actually matter to you personally, like the things that bring you joy, the people, the activities, the hobbies, whatever have you, that bring you a sense of purpose and fulfillment in life. So because you're focused on that, you don't realize that, okay, like that's, can not completely free, but that's okay. But in One Piece, you know, they make sure to remind you on a regular basis that the system in charge, in power, is corrupt as everything. The
yeah,
Marines, the organization that's supposed to fight for your well-being, is also corrupt.
yeah.
They resort to sometimes shady dealings with pirates. Remember Captain, what's his name? Nezumi. He's literally a rat. Like his name, it means rat in Japanese.
Bruh.
He was in shady dealings with Arlong. And I love the way they spun that in the live action, because he showed you just how grimy and scummy that whole situation is. But it's like it's the reality of the world they live in, and they just have to be okay with that. And that's where the warrior of the sun, Sanganika, comes into play, right? That's where Gear Fifth comes into play, because like my existence is for the purpose of taking care of that, right? And that's why I can't wait for Oda to get into more of the lore, right? Because we know like vaguely about it, because we see Luffy transform and all that, but we don't really know who he was. Based on what we've heard or what we've been told, he was a real thing. Like, he was an actual
Actual person, yeah.
person that was going around doing certain things. So it's like, where, like, who was the original one? My guess is probably it was probably Joy Boy. He's probably the one. So
Probably, yeah. I can't wait to get into that. I'm just loving how it's like tying into old characters that we love, like Kuma and Bonnie and everything. Like it's a really beautiful story. It's one of the best parts about One Piece, honestly. The way that Oda ties things back to earlier parts of the story and everything. Just
mhm.
kind of it's kind of like a puzzle where you didn't see where this missing piece was, and now it's just there. And now it's like, oh, this made sense all along. So I can't wait to see more. This last chapter was incredible. I mean, I've been loving these past few chapters in One Piece, especially like just seeing Bonnie's story, like her going from my like least favorite supernova to now like one of my favorites is crazy. And it's all because of this story, all because of Kuma and kind of tying in Gear Fifth, like him saying like, yeah, I know that the sun god Nika will set us free one day, and like him putting the trust, seeing what lengths Kuma was willing to go to put
And
his trust into Luffy.
he sells himself so unbelievably short. He doesn't even see himself as a hero when
He doesn't.
everybody else does. They're like, what you would call it? Like everything that he's done in the story is he's basically a saint.
Yeah.
The way he sacrificed himself for everybody, taking on everybody else's pain, going through so much pain and anguish for the sake of others. That's what saints do.
Saint
And
Saturn.
oh gosh, I can't. Yo, Saturn needs to get touched. I ain't
Hey,
gonna
yo,
lie to you.
what?
Yes, what I
What
mean
do
by
you
that
mean
is
by that?
he needs a fist to the face like Charlie.
Oh, to the
Yeah,
face.
that's what I
Okay.
mean when I need, I say he needs to get touched. Not in a sensual way. No, definitely not. Not like that.
Not like George Michael, Careless Whisper.
No, one of my favorite songs of all time, but no, he needs to get absolutely destroyed. He needs to get
Oh
wrecked.
hell! Oh my God! This just don't even say anymore, Teddy.
He gotta go. This man
Okay,
gotta go. Like I
he's
just
gotta
can't.
go. Yeah, he looks weird too. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, he looks weird. But I mean, hey man, I think that I think that Kuma. I'm not. I hope they don't come out with something cringe. Like Luffy. He said the same thing. Like, oh, I'm not a hero. You imagine he looks into the camera and he says, "I'm not a hero. I'm a liberator." Like, bro, I would die if that
If who
happened.
says that?
If Luffy says that,
Oh,
because he said that before. Like, I'm not a hero. Like Zoro said kind of something similar. Like, we're not heroes. We're pirates.
yeah.
But you
Oh
know
my
how it is.
god.
They better
If
not come out with some cringe lines like that.
that would
Or
no,
he's not.
no.
I'm not a hero. I'm the sun god, or something like something stupid like
It's like
that.
I'm Nika, sun god Nika. Like
Yeah,
listen.
I'm like, bro, like as if that's like a common like saying or something that people are gonna hear that and be like, oh yeah, that's badass.
No,
You know?
I don't think that's gonna happen just because Luffy isn't the type to proclaim titles like that.
Yeah,
He's
he is.
never done it. That'd be really out of character for him to do something like that. I don't think that's him. I think he just goes on about his business and, you know, takes care of any problem that he comes across. And that's just it. Like he doesn't he doesn't linger much on what it means to do those things and how it affects people's perception of him.
Yeah,
He just does them. And then after the fact, people will call him hero or do certain things, and he'd be like, "Listen, man, I'm that ain't me, bro. That ain't me. I just help out when I can, but that ain't me. Don't count on me like that." So
yeah, yeah, man. But hey, man, this was a really awesome topic. I'm actually like I'm always surprised when we talk about these things, like how this conversation just stretches into like I guess new territory that I wasn't really expecting
I know, right?
going into it. And this is a great one. I think it's something that we'll definitely revisit as the story kind of develops and as we learn more about like what Oda exactly means when he's depicting freedom and joy and everything, and kind of us developing our thoughts. Hopefully, this entire conversation was cohesive and made sense. I feel like it did. I feel like it was very insightful and provocative in terms of thoughts. Do you have any kind of last words? Any last thoughts, Teddy?
Um, I mean, listen, man, I just feel like much like the nature um of that form, Gear Fifth, the potential is damn near endless. And I can't wait to see where we go with that. Because I mean, it just the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit. And with Kuma's backstory, seeing everything that we have, I've never been more excited to learn more about him, about the sun god. So can't wait to learn more about that, man.
Yeah, and hopefully we do learn that. Big announcements for One Piece. They're getting a remake of the East Blue Saga by Studio Wit, the same studio that did Attack on Titan and is doing Spy X Family or Spy Family. Um, and
Oh, they're
a
not
lot of
remaking East Blue, bro. They're remaking the whole anime.
Yeah, but they're starting with East Blue Saga. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, of course. But
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And I have my own like reservations about it because like you know how we talked about this before, and we'll just end on this a random tangent. You know how they have those movies, quote unquote, Teddy, where like they recap East Blue Saga, Skypiea Saga, or whatever, right? And
yeah.
it's just like an hour long. The animation is great, but does it hit nearly as hard as the original
For
anime?
whatever reason, most of the time it doesn't.
It
I don't
doesn't.
know. I don't know why. I think like in those, because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I've struggled with them too because I would see snippets of them and I'm like, for some reason it's like it lacks weight and impact for whatever reason, because they seem to focus more on the aesthetics of what it looks like and not so much on what it means, like the story that's being told there,
Yeah,
which I feel like the original did 10 times better. Like, for example, do you remember the when they remade basically Water 7 slash Enies Lobby,
yeah.
that jet Gatling that Luffy hits Lucci with?
Oh yeah,
That
I mean,
thing had so much impact in the original. It was done to perfection. I'm standing on this, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. I don't think that there's any way to animate that any better than the original did. The way the original showed it, with the impact, the emotions, the music score, everything came together exactly the way it was supposed to.
yeah. The shot composition, everything was perfect.
When exactly when they remade it, it wasn't there. It wasn't.
Yeah,
It
because
was
it's
not
just
it.
it's almost just like a little slideshow, like a little YouTube AMV, like animated music video, where just you're just watching a slideshow of things happening, and it's like, yeah, it looks pretty, but there's no like artistic direction to it, you know? Or there
There
is,
isn't.
like, of course, obviously, like they had to have hired a director on it, but the director, whoever it was either not, they did not put the same care that the original team did, and I don't
No,
think I don't think a team ever will. Studio Wit, as talented as they are, they're not going to be working with the original soundtrack of by Toei, which is already going to be a big hit. You already saw, people complaining about that in the live action. Like, what little we got was amazing. If we didn't get any, people would have been pretty pissed. So thankfully we got some, but with the Studio Wit, it's going to be an OG, like all original soundtrack. It's going to be very tough for it to be welcomed warmly, as the OG anime was, but we'll see. I'll definitely check it out, because we love One Piece. But yeah, I guess with that, let us know what you think about just like Gear Fifth, the themes of joy, freedom, and even I think we hope we were talking about as well. And let us know about this, how you've been feeling about the latest chapters of One Piece, and even the topic that we just kind of brought up towards the end here about whether or not Studio Wit is gonna be able to recreate the magic of the original One Piece anime, and strike with lightning. Let us know what you think. Leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe if you'd like to. And with that, we are out. Peace.
peace.